Daf Yomi, Daf Yomi, Daf Yomi, Daf Yomi. Tractate Shevuos, page 37a, top of the page. Daf Lamed Zayin, Amud Aleph, with the word Lahu. Hezim Shevuos HaPikadon. Vidro Mau, came on the Hidushud, because I live in noise the Roman. Vehachama is he called Banosh Nasrabe, Nasrabe, O Dilma, Hani Milie Hadelas Rabe, Aval Heras Rabe, Milkalaki, Korban, La Maite, O Dilma, O Abdinan, to them. If one intentionally took a false oath on a deposit and witnesses forewarned him, what is the halacha? Is it the case that since the halacha of an oath on a deposit is a novelty, as in the entire Torah, we do not find another case where one who transgressed intentionally brings an offering for atonement? But here he does bring an offering for transgressing the prohibition intentionally. There is no difference. Okay, if one intentionally took a false oath on a deposit, what's the halacha? And witnesses forewarned him. Is it the case that since the halacha of an oath on deposit is a novelty in the entire Torah, we do not find another case? Okay. But here he does bring an offering for transgression of the prohibition intentionally. There is no difference whether witnesses forewarned him, and there is no difference whether they did not forewarn him. And he is liable to bring a guilt offering, though generally there is no offering brought when there was forewarning, or perhaps that matter of bringing a guilt offering when one intentionally takes a false oath applies only when they did not forewarn him, but when they forewarned him, he is flogged, as this is the standard punishment for an intentional transgression, and he does not bring an offering. Or perhaps we impose both lashes and a guilt offering. Omar le tanina chamuay manash v'ot b'pikadon shechay v'nazal v'akas v'shegos v'asham mechaz b'shkolim midikoma le'azadon makois mikladis robei v'komar makois in korban lo. They said to Rav Kahana, we learned in a Braita, the halachot of an oath on a deposit are more stringent than the halachot of an oath of testimony, as one liable to receive lashes for intentionally taking a false oath on a deposit, and for unwittingly taking a false oath on a deposit, one is liable to bring a guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels, whereas one who takes a false oath of testimony, whether intentionally or unwittingly, brings a sin offering, from the fact that the Braita states that for intentionally taking a false oath on a deposit, one is liable to receive lashes. By inference, it can be understood that the Braita is referring to a case where witnesses forewarned him, as one cannot receive lashes without forewarning, and it is stating, yes, he is liable to receive lashes, but he is not liable to bring an offering. The Braita then resolves the question of Rav Kahana. Umay chamura denicha le'inishtemai sikorban v'lo le'ilke. The Gemara elaborates. And what is the stringency in the fact that one who intentionally takes a false oath on a deposit receives lashes? It is due to the fact that a person prefers to bring an offering rather than receive lashes. I'll say, yeah. Lashes are nasty. Whips, drawing blood, pain, excruciating pain. Amar lahu Rav Baritai Man tanazadin Shevuos HaPikadon lo nitan lechabod. Rabbi Shimon aval lerabanan korban nami maiti. Rava bar Itai said to the students of Rava, you cannot answer the question from that Braita as who is the Tana who taught that intentionally taking a false oath on a deposit is not subject to atonement. It is Rabbi Shimon, but according to the rabbis, he is liable to bring a guilt offering as well as receiving lashes. Therefore, the question remains unanswered. Now, the question remains unanswered, but it's not a teku. This is interesting. This goes into a big quandary behind. This is an unanswered question, but it's not a teku. So, who decides what's what? Are there any qualifying factors? Okay. Amar lahu Rav Kahana bar Mina Tihahi Adeana tanina la ve'achi tanina le Echad zidon ve'echad shigagat ha'ashem v'chesef shkalim u'may chumra Ti'ilu ha'samuchatos bat danka Mehacha asham v'chesef shkalim. Rav Kahana said to the students, apart from this, you cannot answer my question from this Braita, as I am the one who teaches this Braita, and this is how I teach it. An oath on a deposit is more stringent than an oath of testimony, since for taking a false oath on a deposit, either intentionally or unwittingly, one is liable to bring a guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels. And what is the stringency in this halacha? It is that there, with regard to an oath of testimony, he is liable to bring a sin offering that can be worth even 1/6 of 1 dinar. And here the guilt offering incurred for an oath on a deposit must be worth at least 2 silver shekels. The Gemara suggests, and let him derive an answer to this question from his version of the Braita, which indicates that one who intentionally takes a false oath on a deposit brings an offering and does not receive lashes. The Gemara responds, perhaps is referring to a case where they did not forewarn him. Had he been forewarned, he would be flogged. Lishnach lina tashima ein chayv al shkarasa ma hein chayv al zidoina ashum chesed shkolim ma ilav pidias rubei achanami diloas rubei. The Gemara presents a different version of the previous discussion. Come in here and answer to the question of Rav Kahana from the Mishnah. One is not liable for taking a false oath on a deposit unwittingly. How do you take an oath unwittingly? Wow. It's mind-bending. You can't, when you take an oath, you're saying something specific. How is that? How can you be unwitting? I don't know. Another question. Okay. And what is he liable for? When he intentionally takes a false oath, a guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels. The Gemara explains. What, is it not that the Mishnah is referring to a case where the witnesses forewarned him, and the Mishnah nevertheless rules only that he must bring an offering? The Gemara rejects the proof. Here too, the Mishnah is referring to a case where the witnesses did not forewarn him. Tashima lo imamat benazir tame sheken lo ike tomar b'Shevuos ha'pikadon she'eno lo ike b'dekama lo ike b'chlal da'asru bei v'ka'omar tomar b'Shevuos ha'pikadon she'eno lo ike al kol v'maisi. The Gemara continues to seek an answer to Rav Kahana's question. Come in here and answer from a Braita. After comparing the case of a Nazarite to one who, another reference in the 6th parsha, Mamish and Parsha, thus right now we had all kinds of stuff. Sota, Nazir, all kinds of stuff. Wow. You know what? That's why I'm in it. That's why I stick in this Daf Yomi thing, because even though it's sometimes it's really tedious, and a lot of it's just dry, I'll just say boring stuff, and irrelevant, from the surface, but there's something to it. There's some kind of flow to it. And so that's why I'm in it. That's really what I'm in it for. Coming here an answer from a Braita after comparing the case of a Nazirite to one who takes an oath on a deposit. The Braita states, no, if you said that the halacha that Braita discusses is true with regard to an impure Nazirite who is indeed flogged for intentionally becoming impure, should you also say that this is the case with regard to one who took an oath on a deposit who is not flogged? The Gemara notes, now, from the fact that the Braita states that a Nazirite is flogged, by inference it can be understood that the Braita is referring to a case where witnesses forewarned him, as one is not liable to receive lashes without forewarning. And yet, the Braita states, shall you say that this is the case with regard to one who took an oath on a deposit who is not flogged? One can infer, but he does bring a guilt offering. Ma eno loike, de'eno nifta b'malkus, miklad nazir tamen nifta b'malkus. HaKorban ketiv be, hatam d'maiti korban gehechi d'techol ale nezirut b'tahara. The Gemara rejects the proof. What does the Braita mean when it states that he is not flogged? It means that he is not exempted through lashes alone, and he must also bring an offering. The Gemara asks, by inference, does this mean that an impure Nazirite is exempted through lashes alone? Isn't it written in the Torah explicitly with regard to him that there is a requirement to bring an offering? The Gemara responds, the offering brought by an impure Nazirite does not serve as an atonement. Rather, the Nazirite brings an offering in order to purify himself so that his Naziriteship can go into effect while he is in a state of purity. The offering must be brought even if the Nazirite became impure unwittingly. Amru harabanan kamiderabba Amar lehu miklal dechilo ato be iga edim mechayev kefiras tibarim v'alma hu alma kasav rabba hakovan b'mamon sheshelav edim patur. The sages said this matter before Rabbah, meaning they related the question of Rav Kahana as to whether one who intentionally takes a false oath and was forewarned by witnesses is liable to bring an offering. Rabbah said to them, may one conclude by inference that in a case when they do not warn him, but there are witnesses to the fact that the defendant owes money to the claimant, he is liable to bring an offering? Isn't this case merely a verbal denial that does not have any effect with regard to liability to pay? Since there are witnesses who will testify that the defendant owes the claimant, his denial and false oath did not exempt him from payment, and he therefore should not be able to bring a guilt offering for taking a false oath. The Gemara infers, evidently, Rabbah holds that one who denies a monetary claim to which there are witnesses is exempt from bringing a guilt offering for taking a false oath, since the witnesses will testify to the validity of the claimant's claim, and the denial of the defendant is of no consequence. Amar le Rav Chanina le Rabo, Tanya M'sayla, v'chi chashba prat lemodet le'echad min ha'achin, o le'echad min ha'shutafin, v'nishba o shaker, prat lo v'mishtar lo v'edim. Rav Chanina said to Rabbah, a Braita is taught that supports your opinion. The verse states, with regard to an oath denying a monetary claim and deal falsely therein, Leviticus 5:22, which serves to exclude one who admits to the truth of the claim of one of a group of brothers or to one of a group of partners, even if he denies the claim to the rest of the brothers or partners. The same verse also states, and swear to a lie, which serves to exclude one who borrows money with a promissory note, or one who borrows money in the presence of witnesses. Evidently, one is not liable for taking a false oath concerning a monetary claim when there are witnesses who can testify to it. Amar le im mishum ha lo tisayan be'omar leviti velo leviti ba'edim leviti velo leviti b'shtar. Rabbah said to him, if your proof is because of that Braita, you have not supported us. Since that Braita is referring to a case where the defendant says, I borrowed, but I did not borrow in the presence of witnesses, or he says, I borrowed, but I did not borrow with a promissory note. Since his denial is only with regard to the circumstances of the loan and not to the actual debt, he is exempt from liability for taking the false oath. Mimai midiktani v'chichesh ba prat limod le'echad min ha'achin o le'echad min ha'shutafin hai le'echad min ha'achin hechidami ile milod le'e b'pal galideh hai ka'kefir di'idach el alav di'amalei metavinan yizaft ואמר לו מאחד מן האחו יזפי דהביה לכפירת דבר מעמה ומדרשה כפירת דברים ספר נמי כפירת דברים. Rabbah elaborates from where in the Braita is this explanation apparent, from the fact that it teaches that the verse and deal falsely therein serves to exclude one who admits to one of the brothers or to one of the partners. What are the circumstances of that case where one admits to one of the brothers? If we say that he admitted only the portion of the debt owed to that brother, then why is he exempt? Isn't there the denial of the claim of the other brother, which is a denial of the monetary claim? Rather, is it not that the brother said to him, you borrowed from both of us, and he said to them, no, I borrowed all of the amount in question from only one of you, which is merely a verbal denial, as he admits that he owes the claimed amount and disputes only the circumstances of the debt. And since the first clause of the Braita is referring to a case of a verbal denial, the last clause is also referring to a verbal denial. Consequently, one cannot cite a proof from this Braita. Siman Chova Kitot Dibala Bait Chomer Nezira Toshima Eno Chayav Al Shirasa Umau Chayav Zedona Ashameches Shkalim My Love Zedon Edim La Zedona Tzim. The Gemara attempts to prove that one who takes a false oath on a deposit is liable to bring an offering even when there are witnesses, and presents a mnemonic to remember the series of proofs. And the mnemonic is liability, sets of the homeowner, stringent Nazarite. The Gemara suggests coming here a proof from the Mishnah. He's not liable for unwittingly taking a false oath by itself. And what is he liable for when he intentionally takes a false oath? He must bring a guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels. The Gemara continues, what? Is it not referring to a case where he intentionally denies the claim of witnesses? And the Mishnah nevertheless teaches that he is liable to bring a guilt offering. The Gemara rejects the proof. No. The Mishnah is referring to a case where there are no witnesses and he admits on his own that he intentionally took a false oath. Had there been witnesses, he would have been exempt from bringing an offering. Tashima hayushteki te'edim keva rishona ve'achar כך keva shniyo shne'en chayavois mipnei sheyachol le'edus eskayan mishteh bishlam b'shniya tichayav te'akav kala kat rishona el rishona mayim michayva The Gemara suggests coming here a proof from the Mishnah 31b that discusses an oath of testimony. If there were two sets of witnesses who took an oath of testimony, and the first set falsely denied knowledge of the matter, and then the second set falsely denied knowledge of the matter, both are liable because the testimony can exist with either of them. The Gemara clarifies, granted, the second set should be liable since the first set already denied knowledge of the incident and the validity of the claimant's monetary claim. Now it depends on their testimony, but why is the first set liable? Now we turn to page 37b, Lamed Zayin Amud Bet, top of the page with the words Hakaima Shniya. Doesn't the second set stand ready to testify so that the refusal of the first set of witnesses does not affect a monetary claim? Evidently, a denial of a monetary claim to which there are witnesses is still considered a denial. Amar Rabina Hachabama Yaskinan, Kikon Shais Shniya B'Shat Kriyas Rishonam, Krovin B'Nishotehen Gosisot, Mahu L'Temer Rov Gosisin L'Mita, Komashmelan Hashtamihat Haye Ninhu V'Lo Shchive. Ravina said, here we are dealing with a case where, at the time of the denial by the first set, the second set of witnesses were related to one another through their wives, so that the second set was unfit to provide testimony, and their wives were moribund. Lest you say most moribund people actually die soon thereafter, and the witnesses are considered fit to provide testimony, the Braita teaches us that in any event, they are currently alive and have not died. The second set was therefore unfit to provide testimony. Tashima Balabait Shita'an Ta'anat Ganav Bepikadon Vinishba Vehoda Uva'u Edim Im Ad Shelo Va'u Edim Hoda Mishalam Keren Vechomesh Ve'asham Im Mishiba'u Edim Hoda Mishalam Tashlum Kefer Ve'asham. The Gemara suggests coming here a proof from a Braita. In the case of a homeowner acting as a bailey who falsely claimed that a thief stole a deposit from him, and the homeowner took an oath to that effect, and then admitted that he was lying, and witnesses came and testified that the item was not stolen from the homeowner, the halacha depends on the circumstances. If he admitted to his lie before the witnesses came and testified, he pays the principal value of the item and the additional 1/5 payment for denying that he possessed the deposit, and he brings a guilt offering as atonement for a false oath on a deposit. If he admitted his guilt after the witnesses came and testified, he pays the double payment and brings a guilt offering. The Braita indicates that even in the case of a monetary claim to which there are witnesses, one is liable to bring a guilt offering. Hachanami Kederavina. The Gemara responds here too. Explain this Braita as Ravina explained the previous Braita, that at the time the homeowner took his oath, the witnesses were related through their moribund wives and were unfit to provide testimony. Amalei Rabbeinu Abashi Toshima Chamora Mimenu Shevuos HaPikadon Shechayev Lazon Makos Shegasa Asham Chesed Shkalim Mitek Amar Lo Ike Bichlal Direi Ravina says, Rashi, come and hear another proof from that which is taught in the Braita. The halachot of an oath on a deposit are more stringent than the halachot of an oath of testimony, as one is liable to receive lashes for intentionally taking a false oath on a deposit, and one is liable to bring a guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels for taking the oath unwittingly. Ravina infers from the fact that the Braita states that one is flogged. By inference, it can be understood that the Braita is referring to a case where there are witnesses to the fact that the deposit is in the defendant's possession and the defendant was forewarned, and yet it states one is liable to bring a guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels for taking the oath unwittingly. Amar Luhu, Rav Mordechai. Rav Mordechai. Haven't had him in a while. I wonder when the last time we had Rav Mordechai. Rav Mordechai. Rav Mordechai says, Rav Mordechai, it makes me think of Purim. Rav Mordechai. Valmina. Dehahi de'amal. Lehu Rav Kahana. Amal Tanina Behache. Tanina La. Echad Zedona. Echad Shkaka. Asham Mechesef Shkalim. Rav Mordechai said to them, apart from this, you cannot cite this Braita as proof. As didn't Rav Kahana already say to the students on 37a, I'm the one who teaches this Braita, and this is how I teach it. An oath on a Braita is more stringent than an oath of testimony. Since for taking a false oath on a deposit, either intentionally or unwittingly, one is liable to bring a guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels. The Braita is not referring to a case in which there were witnesses who forewarned him. Tashima lo imamalt binazir tameh shekain loike tomel b'shvuos hapigadon she'en loike hechidami ideleka edim amay loike ela pshita deika edim b'katani tomel b'shvuos hapigadon she'en loike milka hu. The Gemara suggests, come and hear a proof from another Braita. No. If you said that the halacha, that Braita discusses, is true with regard to an impure Nazarite who is indeed flogged for intentionally becoming impure, shall you also say that this is the case with regard to one who took an oath on a deposit who was not flogged? The Gemara elaborates, what are the circumstances of the Braita? If it is a case where there were no witnesses, why is a Nazarite flogged? Rather, isn't it obvious that there are witnesses, and yet the Braita teaches, shall you also say that this is the case with regard to one who took an oath on a deposit who was not flogged? It may be inferred that he does not receive lashes, but does bring an offering, even though there are witnesses. The Gemara concludes, the refutation of the opinion of Rabbah is indeed a conclusive refutation. Rav Yochanan Amar, kol b'momen sheyesh alav eidim chayav b'shtar patur. Amar Papa, my time of Rav Yochanan, eidim abit d'mais ishtar hamanach. Rav Yochanan says, one who denies a monetary claim to which there are witnesses is liable to bring a guilt offering for a false oath on a deposit. But if he denies a debt concerning which there is a promissory note, he's exempt. Papa said, what is the reasoning of Rabbi Yochanan? It occurs that witnesses die, and it is therefore possible that he would not be found liable through their testimony. He is therefore considered to have denied a monetary claim. By contrast, a promissory note remains in its place, and his denial would never have exempted him from payment. Amar Yehoshua Papa Shtar Nami Yavid Demirkas Ela Huna Bereda Yehoshua Haydu Tavid Yohanan Mishum Davishtar Shivukar Kois Ve'ein Mevin Korban Al Kfiras Shivud Kar Kois. Rav Huna, son of Yehoshua, said to Rav Papa, this cannot be the reasoning of Rav Yochanan, as it occurs that a promissory note becomes lost. Rather, Rav Huna, son of Yehoshua, said, this is the reasoning of Rav Yochanan. It is because a promissory note comprises a lien on land, since the promissory note places a lien on the debtor's property, and one does not bring an offering for an oath on a deposit for denying a lien on land, since one does not take an oath concerning land. Itmal mashpia edi kalka pligi Rabbi Yochanan de Rabbi Elazar. אחד אמר חייב ואחד אמר פטור. תסתיים דרבי יוחנן דאמר פטור מדרבי יוחנן הכופר בממון שיש לו עדים חייב שטר פטור וכדרב הונא ורדרב ישוע תסתיים. It was stated in a case where one administers an oath to witnesses who deny knowing information with regard to ownership of land, and they deny knowledge of the matter. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar disagree. One says that the witnesses are liable to bring a sin offering for a false oath of testimony, and one says that they are exempt. The Gemara notes it may be concluded that it is Rabbi Yochanan who says that they are exempt. This can be inferred from the fact that Rabbi Yochanan says one who denies a monetary claim to which there are witnesses is liable, but one who denies a claim concerning which there is a promissory note is exempt. And this conclusion is in accordance with the explanation of Rav Huna, son of Rabbi Yehoshua, that the reasoning of Rabbi Yochanan is that a promissory note comprises a lien on land, and one does not bring an offering for denying a lien on land. The Gemara affirms, indeed, it may be concluded. Amar le Rabbi Yomi le Rabbi Abahu Lema Rabbi Yochanan le Rabbi Elazar beplukta de Rabbi Eliezer beplukta de Rabbi Eliezer ורבנן כמפלגי נתנן הגוזל שדה מחברו ושטפה נהר חייב להעמיד לו שדה. דברי רבי אליעזר וחכמים אומרים אומר לו הרי שלך לפניך. Rabbi Yirmiyah said to Rabbi Abahu, shall we say that Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar disagree with regard to the issue that is subject of the dispute of Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis? As we learned in a Braita, in the case of one who robbed another of a field and then a river flooded it, he is liable to provide the field's owner with a different field, since the value of the flooded field was significantly decreased, and the robber must return the value of that which he stole. This is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer. The rabbis say he is exempt from doing so, as he can say to the owner, that which is yours is before you. The robber may return the flooded field to his owner without reimbursing him for the loss of its value. How do you steal a field? Since, according to the rabbis, land cannot be stolen. No sooner did I ask that. I mean, I can see the rabbis say land can't be stolen. It can only be stolen if like, he does some extortion and makes him sell it or something, or throws him off the land somehow. Consequently, the field is considered to be in the possession of its owner, and the thief is not obligated in the mitzvah of returning a stolen item. Ve'amrinan b'mai k'mifli Rabbi Eliezer de Reish Ribui Me'utei Rabbanan Darash Klali Prati. Rabbi Yirmiyah continues, and we say, with regard to what do they disagree, Rabbi Eliezer interprets the verses that discuss an oath on a deposit and the mitzvah to return stolen items according to the hermeneutical principle of amplifications and restrictions, and the rabbis interpret them according to the hermeneutical principle of generalizations and details. Rabbi Eliezer Darash Ribui Me'utei he explains, Rabbi Eliezer interprets the verses, if anyone sin and commit a trespass against the Lord and deal falsely with his neighbor in a matter of deposit or of pledge or of robbery or have oppressed his neighbor or of anything about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore it in full. Leviticus 5:21-24. According to the hermeneutical principle of amplifications and restrictions, the phrase, if anyone sin and commit a trespass against the Lord and deal falsely with his neighbor, amplify the halacha. When the verse states in a matter of deposit or of pledge, it has restricted the halacha to the case of a deposit. When the verse then states of anything about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore it in full, it has then amplified the halacha again. ריבה ומיית וריבה, ריבה הכל, מאי ריבה כל מילה, ומאי מיית שתבויס. Accordingly, as the Torah amplified and then restricted and then amplified again, it is amplifying the halakha to include everything except for the specific matter included by the restriction. What is included due to the fact that the verse has amplified the halakha? The verse has amplified the halakha to include everything that one steals, and what is excluded due to the fact that the verse restricted the halacha is restricted the halacha to exclude financial documents which are dissimilar to a deposit in that their value is not intrinsic but rather due to their function. Consequently, according to Rabbi Eliezer, land that was stolen is included in the halachot stated in these verses, and one who steals land must reimburse the field's owner. V'Rabbanan darshi klali uprati. V'Rabbanan darshi klali uprati. Let's pause here for a moment. V'Rabbanan darshi klali uprati v'chichesh b'amito. כלל בפיקדון או בתשומת יד או בגזל. פרט או מכל אשר ישבה עליו. חזר וכלל. כלל ופרט, כלל וכלל. אי התדן אלא כן הפרט. And the rabbis interpreted these verses according to the hermeneutical principle of generalizations and details. The phrase, and deal falsely with his neighbor, is a generalization, while the subsequent verse, in a matter of deposit or of pledge or of robbery, is a detail. When the verse then states, or anything about which one has sworn falsely, he shall restore it in full, it has then generalized again. In the case of a generalization and then a detail and a generalization, you may deduce that the verse is referring only to items similar to the detail. Ma haprat mifarash davar hamitalter leguf mamon af kol davar hamitalter leguf mamon yatsu karkaot she'en mitaltelim yatsu avadim shukshu lekarkaot yatsu shtarot she'af al pi shemitaltelin en gufan mamon. Accordingly, just as the detail, meaning the deposit, is explicitly a case of movable property and has intrinsic monetary value, so too the verse includes anything that is movable property and has intrinsic monetary value. Consequently, land has been excluded as it is not movable property. Canaanite slaves have been excluded as they are compared to land with regard to many areas of halakha. Financial documents have been excluded because, although they are movable property, they do not have intrinsic monetary value. Man de michayav keRabbi Eliezer, uman de potar keDrabbanan. Rabbi Yirmiyah concludes, shall we say, that the one who deems the witness is liable in a case of an oath of testimony concerning land, meaning Rabbi Elazar, holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, that land is included in the midst of returning stolen property, and in the halachot of an oath on a deposit, and by extension in the halachot of an oath of testimony, and the one who deems them exempt, meaning Rabbi Yochanan, holds in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, that land is excluded from these halachot. Amar le lo. Man du chayk Rabbi Eliezer one of us on Malach and Beha Filu Rabbi Eliezer Moed and Ramana Amar Nikol Velachol. Rabbi Babu says Rabbi Yirmiyah no. The two disagreements do not completely correspond. The one who deems the witness is liable must in fact hold in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. But the one who deems them exempt could have said to you, in this case, the testimony, even Rabbi Eliezer concedes that they are exempt from bringing an offering, as the merciful one states, or of anything about which he has sworn falsely, and not everything about which he has sworn falsely. The verse indicates that only certain items are included in the halachot of an oath of testimony. Therefore, land is excluded since it is dissimilar to the specific instances mentioned in the verse. Since it is dissimilar to the specific instances mentioned in the verse. Amar Papa Mishmei Rave, Mastis and Ameleka, Diktani Ganavto Shoiri. Voim lo Ganavti, Mashbiach Ani, Omar Amen, Chayav. Ve'ilu Ganavta et Abdim, Lo Ketani, my time, La Mishum de Abed et Takash, the Karkaot, Vein Mevin Korban. Al Kviat Shibud Kalkaot. Rav Papa said in the name of Rava, the Mishnah is also precisely formulated as it teaches. In a case where one accuses another, you stole my ox, and the defendant says, I did not steal your ox. If the claimant replied, I administer an oath to you, and the defendant said, Amen, he is liable. The Mishnah discusses a claim of a stolen ox, whereas it does not teach a claim of you stole my Canaanite slave. What is the reason? Is it not due to the fact that a Canaanite slave is compared to land, and one is not liable to bring an offering for a denial in a matter of a lien on land? Amar Rav Papi, Bishmei Derove, Ema Sefer, Ze HaKlal, Kol Meshalem Al Pi Atzmo Chayav. ושאין משלם ביעצו פטור, זה הכלל. לאיתוי מאי, לאו לאיתוי גנבתי עבדי. Rav Papi said in the name of Rava, there is no proof in the Mishnah. As, say the last clause of the Mishnah, this is the principle. For any claim that the defendant would have to pay based on his own admission, he is liable. And for any claim that he would not pay based on his own admission, but by the testimony of witnesses, he is exempt, even if he denies the claim against him and takes an oath to that effect. If Papi asks, what is added by the phrase, this is the principle? Is it not to include even an accusation of, you stole my Canaanite slave, in the halacha of oaths on a deposit?